Welcome to the Hoporenkv Native American podcast, where we discuss focused topics within tribal housing and self-determination. I am Melissa Atkins, the Training and Development Coordinator, and with me is Brooke Warrington, the Training and Development Specialist. On today's show, we're excited to have Everett Osceola film Liaison for Florida Seminole Tourism for the Seminole Tribal Florida and is a Seminole Tribal Florida tribal member. Before we get started on today's topic, can you go ahead and just introduce yourself to our audience real quick, please?
Yes, thank you, Oista and Brooke, for inviting me for yet again another visit to Native Learning Center. Again, my name is Everett Osceola, Stongo Hini Hematalit. Yes, I'm the film liaison and also the cultural ambassador for the Seminole Tribe of Florida. But also, I'm the founder and president of Native Reels Cinema Fest. So, what we try to do with the platform of Cinema Fest is actually giving opportunities for producers, directors, actors who are coming up with, films that deal with indigenous identity issues, whether it be environmental, political. We try to specialize in BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color type of thing. Pretty much it's just, I'm trying to give them a voice, and, what better to give that voice, but on, the silver screen. And then also I do panel discussions, Q&A. So then that way, when they would see their work on film, they can actually see them, right in front of their faces. Like we are, people who not only in the film, but we're actually living, what we do. I love being around people who have the same passion as I do, which is film.
Yay! Thank you so much for sharing that. We wanted to check in with you because we know that you founded Native Reel back in 2014. So this is actually going to be its 10th year in existence, and it'll be celebrated at the upcoming Seminole Tribal Fair and Powwow happening January 30th, February 2nd. So Native Reel will be happening there. We want to talk to you a little bit about, obviously it has grown immensely. It's going to be there at Tribal Fair. What was it like back in 2014 when you had first founded Native Reel?
Okay, so when I first founded Native Reel, I think I kind of briefly went over it in our last segment. It kind of started off when I had like little barbecues at my house, and I used to call it Kung Fu barbecue. So I would bring people from my martial arts class and people from the community, such as my cousins, and I would get these I would get these obscure, not, I wouldn't say obscure, but I would get like movies you couldn't normally find at that time. It was like Suncoast Video. Yeah, I don't know if you guys remember Blockbuster and stuff like that. You couldn't really find these films. So I found a website called hkflix.com. And when I went on there, it was like all these array of different films. And at that time, everything was being converted to DVD. So then I had bought, like a slew of films. And, it was like people I grew up watching, like Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, Sammo Hung, Andrew Leong. So it was like people I grew up with. And so there was this one movie that came out called Ip Man with Donnie Yen. And this was 2009 when I did this. And we watched the film before, but it was kind of like it was made in the 1970s. It was called the Five Venoms, and I liked it. But then when I was showing it to the people in the Kung Fu barbecue, they kind of, it was like a a generational thing. Like we loved it, that came from that generation, but the younger generation, they kind of like were getting bored. And so then actually my teacher, we call him Sifu, he came up to me. He's like, you might want to change the film because people are kind of like going outside, whatever. So I didn't mind changing it. So I was like, well, I got this film called Ip Man. If you guys want to check it out, put it in, and it blew them away. And it had like a lot of action, a lot of whatever. And it was almost kind of like that's what kind of started. I would say that was a little pebble in the puddle that started the ripple of like, man, maybe I can actually show films, and people can watch it. And I can kind of give like a little bit of a synopsis or history of it. So then shooting on a little bit further, I was working with at that time, the education director of the Athathigi Museum, which was Diana Stone. And we both love film. So she wanted to start like kind of like a film club, like a Q&A film club. And we showed a film called March Point. And March Point is a documentary about these young kids. And I haven't seen it in a while, so forgive me. So it was about these young kids, and they were kind of like troublemakers. They're like res kids, whatever. And res kids, I was one. We just, when we get bored, we just get into mischief. So this teacher came up with the idea of, okay, I'm going to give you a video camera and I want you to shoot a short film. So, being young kids, they're just like, oh, we're going to make a hip hop video, blah, blah, blah. And when they brought it back, she was like, okay, that's great. Did you guys shake out the silliness? Now I want you guys to actually shoot something, because you guys are failing and you guys need to shoot something to bring up your grade point average. If you guys shoot something very meaningful, then I'll pass you. And they didn't know what to shoot. So she was like, so something on their reservation, it was in California, where they had a refinery. They're known for doing the salmon refineries, but the water was actually on their reservation, but the state had taken it over and it was getting contaminated. So they actually shot a documentary about that, and it raised awareness of what was going on their reservation. So when that was happening, it was like these little res kids who thought they were going to go nowhere. They're actually going to Washington, D.C. to actually speak in front of Congress. And it was a really good film, a documentary. And we showed it and we had a discussion. I believe Steve Osceola was there, Paul Buster, a couple of other tribal members, and we just sat there and we watched it. And it was such a great, like, I felt it was, even though it was a small turnout, I felt like it kind of like really made an impact. Like the impact was very prevalent. And then after that, I was like, are we going to do another one? And Diana was like, I don't know. She was like, I'm not really getting it. And I was like, I'll put my money towards the next one. And she was like, well, if you want to do that, why don't we do like a short film contest? So I was like, oh, that would be, I was like, you're a genius. Let's start doing that. So we started trying to work with well, at that time, I believe it was Seminole Broadcasting. No. I'm sorry. SCTV, Seminole Broadcasting, so many acronyms, SMP, whatever. So we tried to work with them, and it was just, I wouldn't say taxing, but we had to go through so many, like we had to tell our managers, our directors, blah, blah, blah. So we kind of took it upon ourselves to kind of start a short film contest, but then she left, which, was kind of like disheartening. So then I started working with Carrie Dilly, and she kind of brought up the idea of doing a short film contest. And if we could bring someone to that short film contest to judge the film, we'll give them an award. And we were going to do it kind of like almost, I love her to death. And I love her vision. And but it was almost kind of like we couldn't really do it in the museum because you can't bring any food or drinks into the museum. So we were doing it outside. So she wanted to do it like this 1940s, we were going to have like a red carpet down and have like whoever made the films, we were going to put them like their name on a star and put it on the red carpet. And it was going as far as like she was going to hire somebody to do the where they walk around and they give like the candy person. So they were going to walk around and do that. But what we didn't take into account was the mosquitoes, and we were just getting bitten up really bad. And then at that time, Sterling Hardrow had reached out to me, and this is before Reservation Dogs. This is before he kind of like started getting very successful with his films. I mean, he's always been like a very articulate visionary, and I remember hearing about him through a couple of other friends, and then I know he was part of the fellowship lab for Sundance. Him and Taika Waititi were actually the forerunners for that one. So then he reached out to me, and he came out with this movie called Barking Water. And with everything going on, like people kind of didn't really want to have like a short film fest. They just thought it was just like, oh, like I didn't really touch upon it in the last segment, but when I was growing up, it was almost like when you watched a movie or you went to go watch TV, that was a reward. So you had to do like these, like you would go do your chores, stuff like that. But I felt watching these films was a kind of there was a need for it, and what kind of really got me into that was that movie March Point. So I looked at Barking Water by Sterling. We showed it, but we didn't have enough funding to bring Sterling down. So then we kind of kept in touch, and then I believe he sent a letter, and I read it in front of the people that when we watched Barking Water, and everybody fell in love with that movie. You know, Mary Ann Billy, who's the councilwoman now, a lot of people from the community. What they loved about that film, I felt, was they'd never seen a film. I mean, it's always like documentaries and stuff like that. Like we had documentaries done on Seminoles, and we've seen some of our tribal members in films, but we never seen like actual people that we could relate to. Like in Barking Water, the background for it is it's an ailing elderly man, and he wants to basically go back to his reservation. So his ex-girlfriend comes and breaks him out of the hospital. So she's trying to take him back to his reservation in Oklahoma. During that time, they're reflecting, but they're talking in Creek. You see Creek on there. They have Seminole patchwork. So everybody fell in love with that film. And then after we did that short film fest, we showed a couple of short film fests from a few tribal members. We gave out a couple of awards, and then after that, it kind of just fell on deaf ears again. So I would say that was probably in 2012. So then I really wanted to keep the ball rolling. I wanted to keep it going. So then at that time, I was working for the museum. I was the management trainee person. So then I was trying to learn like the ups and downs and, whatever. And I was working with Stranahan House. And then we were coming up with programs, they wanted to learn about alligator wrestling, but I was like, oh, well, we could learn about the evolution of Seminole music. We could learn about, the Seminole Wars. They're like, no, we want alligator wrestling. And I was like, oh, all right. So we did alligator wrestling. We did a couple of other presentations at Stranahan House. I was working with April Kirk. And then finally, April Kirk, like we had a huge turnout for the Seminole Gator wrestling, history of Seminole Gator wrestling presentation. So we brought out like a little gator. People came out, took pictures with it, whatever. And when we were done, she was like, it was a success. Do you have any more ideas? So I was like, well, would you like to do a film fest or a native film festival? And she was like, yeah. When do you want to do it? And I was like, for real? You want to do a film festival? She was like, yeah. So then that's when I kind of got in touch with a couple of people. That's when I came across this film called The Exiles. And I believe I talked about it briefly. Again, I talked about it briefly at the last segment, but it was a lost film. And we showed it at Stranahan, October 2014. I didn't think anybody was going to show up. And then everybody did. And we had like a rockabilly theme. And then after 2014, like a lot of outlets had talked about it. And then again, it kind of went on, like when we did that one, it kind of fell on deaf ears, but I still wanted to go. I still wanted to keep doing it. And then finally, Gordon Ollie Warham came up to me and he said, what would be the best place to do this is at the Tribal Fair. So when we did it at Tribal Fair, that's when I had brought in Stephen Paul Judd. And then over the years, it started building up. And then I kind of noticed within the film community, some of these native actors and directors, they've always wanted to come to Florida, but they had no connections, no outlets. So because I worked with Sterling before and I worked with Stephen Paul Judd, they started getting the word out there. And I was getting emails from, directors, producers. And then that's when I was like, we might have enough content to do a film festival, because when we showed the first film, which I helped produce, which was Ronnie Bodine, we were just going to have a one night. We were just going to have a one-night premiere. But when people were lined up outside, I was like, I'm sorry, Virginia Osceola and Councilman Christopher Osceola came up to me and they're like, would you like to do another night? And I was like, yeah, I could do another night. So we did another night. And then that's how we kind of came up with Native Real, which is a 2-night event. And what I kind of do with the theme of Native Reel is I try to show a film from the past and then a film from, that's going on now. So I try to keep, because what I was always taught is that's why we have two eyes. So we keep one eye on the past and one eye on the future. And then that's how Native Reel came about. And we're in our 10th year, which I can't believe. I feel so old. But I made a lot of friends, a lot of people within the community. And there's just I'm so thankful for everybody that's helped out. And then sometimes I feel like I'm alone doing this thing because I feel like I'm alone doing with my vision. But then when I talk to these directors, producers, and even my own tribal members, they're like, we like what you're doing. Is there anything we can help? And I was like, yeah, you can help me with this, but I can't pay you. I can pay you with, I can pay you with fry bread, or I could take you out to Denny's, whatever. So it's like, but yeah, some of them just roll up their sleeves and they'll come out and they'll help me. So now we kind of implemented a meet and greet. So when we bring in celebrities, we have a meet and greet portion before we have the native. We have a soft, kind of like a premiere on Friday, and then Saturday, that's when everybody's there at the tribal fair. And then I have the celebrities actually be a part of the powwow grand entries, and even the MCs, they have like a good time with them, because when they're done, they have the celebrities stay up and they make them dance during the powwow. And it's kind of funny seeing some of them, kind of dance. But I mean, I brought Sterling Harjo, Stephen Paul Judd, Graham Greene, Wes Studi, Cody Lightning, Simon Baker, Gene Brave Rock. I might forget a couple of people, but I was also able to bring, I don't know if you guys ever saw Lost Boys, but I was able to bring Billy Worth from Lost Boys, because he was in a movie called War Party, which was one of my favorite films, and which I would like to redo one day. But I was able to bring him, and every time they come here, I always make them feel at home. Like, I try not to make it feel like it's a business type of thing. I mean, we are kind of like bringing them down for a service, but when I bring them here, I take them out, and I had like a very great sit down with them. And I think I discussed it before, but it's almost like when people sit down around, and we were actually at a round table, and I had Billy Worth, Gene Braverock, this talented up and coming director named Shondine Tome, Martin Sinsmeyer, and we were just sitting there, and I was just kind of like a fly on the wall, and they were just like passing ideas to each other. Let's do a movie like this. No, we got to take this character. The character has to be rugged. Well, we do it this way. And I was just sitting there like in awe, just watching them, like just interacting, And so then I came up with an idea. And then when I came up with the idea, they're like, you know what? We're going to steal that, So it was just like this camaraderie of us. It was like almost an organic brainstorming session, which I wasn't even planning. But every time I reach out, and then they kind of like, I wouldn't say like tooting my own horn, beep, beep. But like some of them want to come back, but I think because they want to come back, because I always kind of make them feel like a part of the tribe. Like even Martin Sinsmeyer, he gets, I don't know how many patchwork shirts and necklaces and everything. But yeah, sorry. So that's where we started with Native Reel, and that's where we kind of are at right now.
I'm just like taken back by the evolution, really. Like it started off as in your barbecue, like your backyard as a barbecue, and then it just really like blowed up, and now it's at Native Reel and it's gonna be at Tribal Fair, and it's really incredible. And not only that, but in each stage, like as you're talking about, it just sounded like the community just really started coming together more and more, and it was like word of mouth, and it started spreading. And instead of like, oh, why are you playing this movie? It's what next movie are you going to play? Like, what's the next vision? How can we help? What can we do to get this going every year? So that's really incredible to hear that you started off with like an idea in your backyard, and now you're at a travel fair, and it's incredible. What was that experience like, just kind of seeing the community come together? What was that like for you?
Very endearing. Like sometimes, I got a little kind of emotional, whatever. But I would have to say mostly kind of like, I don't know, like scary in a sense. It's just like, and I always make fun of myself, when I'm on, because I always give like kind of like a closing remark. And I do thank the community. I do thank everybody that came out and helped in passing the word. And and I do get a lot of like suggestions. The only thing that's the drawback of having it at Tribal Fair is I only have like so much time I could show something. And this year we're gonna try something different where we're gonna loop content and short films throughout the day, and then show the feature films at night. So that way I could trying to get as many as I can of content as I can. And a lot of tribal members have came up to me, and I wouldn't say it's kind of weird, but I'm kind of like an introvert. So when I see somebody looking at me, I'm like, why are they looking at me? Like, I'm gonna go back to my house underneath my safety blanket. And they'll come over to me, and a couple of tribal members came up and they're like, hey, we have an idea for a film, or hey, we have an idea for a documentary. Can you help us? And I was like, tell me about your documentary, tell me about your film. And it just kind of blew me away. I always see talent within my tribe, patchwork, jewelry, basket making. And I thought, like I said, I thought I was the only one who really liked film. And, I would watch, and I believe me and Brooke kind of talked about it, but I would watch, like the 3 hour uncut version of Justice League and, stuff like that. Like I would sit there, or like if Aviator came on TV, I would sit there and watch it no matter where part of the movie was at. But it was good seeing like people that are younger than me who are really into film, and they would actually get into the intricacies of filmmaking. And I kind of want to just like harness that. So um it was just really good seeing like tribal members coming up to me, and you know not just kind of like, when's the next film festival. It's more like we want to be a part of the next film festival, and that's what kind of makes me like, okay, I kind of reached a couple of people, so like that. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel proud that I was able to break through. And like I said, when I make fun of myself, like, I'm thinking like, when I see a bunch of people in the seats, I just like, I was like, I want to thank you guys for helping this come a reality, blah blah blah. But I was like, but you took a you took a res kid sitting on his fat ass watching films into a dream. I mean, a dream into a reality type of thing. And that's what I kind of say. And the people I meet during the journey, I mean, they're very great people, you know. And some of them I've really kind of just like had conversations with. Like I had conversations with Graham Greene and Keith Sokola, and Graham Greene was the best guy that came a few years ago. And it was just like, he was just like, his work ethic, he just got personable. He would like, he was kind of he was a little, I mean, little in a little BTS story or behind the scenes story. Martin Sinsmeyer was telling me that they shot a movie called Wind River, and Martin Sinsmeyer was so they're all staying at a hotel together, and they were going to have a van to take them on location. Martin Sinsmeyer tells me, he was like, I was going down there, but I got to get my coffee. So I got down there, and I was about 5 minutes late to the van. Graham Greene was sitting in there already. Martin gets in, everything's quiet. And then Graham Greene kind of scolded him for being late. And he tells him, don't ever be late. You're keeping people who are doing their jobs, or whatever. And Martin, he was like, what was going through my head? And I was like, what? He's like, yes, I'm getting yelled by Graham Greene. And so then when Graham Greene was there, like he told me this before, I was kind of working with Graham Greene, and I was like, oh man, I don't want to make him mad. I don't want to, whatever. And uh, we were doing the 30th anniversary of Thunderheart, which is one of my favorite films. I mean, I'm going to say, everything's my favorite film. So he showed up, and I showed up 15 minutes before, we were supposed to have the call time. He shows up 20 minutes before the next day. We had another one. He shows up 30 minutes, and then I showed up 45 minutes before he did. Like we kind of had like this contest going on, and I was like, yeah, I beat you. It's my film fest, whatever. But he loved working with me. I loved working with him. And it was just like we had this professional respect for each other. And I love that about him. And, you know, to this day, he calls me his nephew, which I was like, oh, you see me as your nephew. Cool. But yeah, so just seeing that, and then, you know, just seeing all these tribal members who are coming up to me and wanting to get into the film industry. So, like I said, it's scary because that's something I gotta kind of really, because I don't want to steer them wrong. I don't want to give them high hopes and not, you know, I kind of want to do whatever I can to just make them ease into painting their picture. The way I see it is painting with film. So however they want to, you know, make their film come out of whatever ideas they have, I just kind of want to nurture that. So
That's beautiful. What is like the process like now? I was doing a little creeping online. I found the submission website for if people wanted to apply to have their work shown. So like what is the process like with kind of reaching out and inviting people to show their or to submit their films, excuse me. What is it like deciding what's going to go in, and then what is it like deciding who's going to be like the winner of the film festival, excuse me.
so this one we're kind of we're just gonna look at, we're gonna do film submissions this year. Next year we're gonna do film submissions and then doing the laureates and awards for next year. This like I was saying before, one of my good friends, David Diaz, he's actually helping me with the film submissions. It has to pertain to like it's globally indigenous. It could be any indigenous tribe from South America, Africa, or you know, Europe, anywhere that's has indigenous, but it has to deal with things that have to show what they're kind of, I wouldn't say what they're going through, but something that just sticks to, I've always tried to go with themes with each native reel that I have, but this year I kind of just want to do a free for all just to see what's out there, just to see what's going on and kind of bringing that to the limelight here. So right now we have over possibly 120 submissions. Some of them are short films, some of them are features. We saw some, one was pretty interesting. Um, it kind of reminded me of like a heavy, I don't know if you guys remember that cartoon Heavy Metal from back in the early 1980s. Probably not, I'm dating myself. But it had this animation quirk to it. But it was just kind of, it was kind of a little trippy. I liked it, but I have two other panelists with me that kind of look over the films. And we got it, we have like a little kind of like a check, you know, this is what we think, this is, you know, and then we kind of come to, it's three of us, so we kind of come to a voting process. So, you know, basically, you know, best, you know, 2 out of 3 votes, you know, gets that. So we actually got to look at some films this weekend. But we had a couple of films from a couple of indigenous tribes here in America, but I kind of wanted to branch out to Central America, South America, you know, and then um, I did get a message through my Instagram or the Native Real Instagram asking if we could do something globally because he was from a tribe in Africa. So I was like, yeah, I mean, we would love to see it, just to look at it, you know, just to be honored to look at it. So, but you know, it's just, it's so many. And like I was saying, like, I'm kind of trying to push Native Real to go outside the boundaries of tribal fair. I mean, I love everything that Councilman Christopher Osceola did for me and Native Real, along with Virginia Osceola and the Tribal Fair Committee. Um, but like you guys were saying earlier, it's getting bigger, and to me, it's getting scarier. So I'm getting kind of like I'm getting requests from Fort Lauderdale International Film Festival. So I'm kind of collaborating with them along with the Athatigi Museum. So I'm just trying to come up with a strategic, I can't even talk, strategic plan for the next 2 years. And right now that's not even enough. But I would like to start showing different films, short films, feature films, you know, and bringing these people, these up and coming directors, you know, and I would love to show their works and what they're going through. Not even what they're going through, but what their vision is. Because like I said, and I wanted to say this in the last segment and I totally forgot. But like me growing up watching, like I said, I think one of my favorite films was Revenge of the Ninja. And then I started watching Once Were Warriors, and then I started watching Life is Beautiful. And so basically I kind of wanted to say, like, with this happening with Film Freeway, I feel like I can travel the world and see the world without even leaving my house by watching these films. So that's what I kind of want to do. And I would like to honor those people. But again, it's scary because now since we're getting bigger, I have to bring more people in, and hopefully the people I bring in have the same passion that I do.
Man, talking about the evolution, and now it's like even getting bigger and bigger, and man, and I totally forgot my question. Shoot.
It's still your baby, though.
Yeah, it's still your baby. Oh, I
Your baby's just
remembered.
now so big that other people have to come help you hold the baby.
Okay, I remember my question. So, talking about like the evolution and everything, and now you're talking about like you're scared because you're going to bring in more people. What are some things that are like through this whole I mean, like the whole process that you've like learned, like biggest takeaways and like the biggest lessons that you've really learned from this whole experience so far?
The biggest thing I kind of took away from this was when I first started out, I kind of had this clear vision of what I wanted to show different films. Um, and and then I would, like kind of like what you were saying, Brooke, it's my baby, that, and everybody would tell me that. They're like, it's your baby. And when I kind of like, no, like if it kind of derailed from my vision of how I wanted to do things, like I got very uh not stern, but I stuck to my guns. I stood my ground. And I kind of didn't know that I was kind of like taking like a leadership role. And one time, one of my assistants was helping me, and he kind of moved on to bigger. I mean, not bigger things. He went on to helping with boats and everything, like the boat shows and stuff like that. And there's a festival called Hukalea, and so he started helping with that. So he kind of went on to bigger, better. I mean, I wouldn't say better things because Native Real's better than anything in the world. Um, I guess he kind of watched me, and I know exactly what I want, and I want it on a certain, like, it has to start at this time. It has to, you got to have the level of the microphone at this point. You got to turn that microphone on so we can hear them, speak. And I would go and then I forgot, like I would I would show trailers and music videos and stuff like that, and I was like, no, that's the wrong one, you're putting the wrong one. So I would get it, and I would go back there, and I was like, no, we're gonna do it all over again. Da, 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 da. And pretty much what I kind of didn't realize, I was taking like a leadership role, and I never kind of like knew that. And Spencer Batiste, we went to New York. We were actually meeting one of his friends, which is Cynthia Benitez, and she runs the film festival in New York, the Indigenous, oh wait, I'm sorry, the Native Showcase Cinema Festival in New York. And I went up and met with her, and then I'm kind of like that person, like, oh, hey guys, what do you guys want to do? Like, can I say something? And then like Spencer's like, yeah, you're our leader. And like when he told me that, I was like, whoa. And then I was like, no, I'm not. He's like, yeah, this is your baby, and that's when I kind of realized. He's like, and when you kind of like, he even told me, he's just like, when you kind of see something that's just a little bit off, you jump on. I mean, he's like, not in a bad way, but you tell him, no, I don't like it that way. Can we do it this way? So I didn't know, like, in a way, I was kind of taking on a leadership role. And then I believe one of the people I brought in, I guess when they were seeing me work, they're like, man, you would be a cool director to work with. And I was like, I never saw myself as like a director or a leader. So it was kind of just like I wasn't really trying to go for that. I just wanted to show films, and I just wanted to show it the best possible way, best sound, best picture, not having any distractions from outside. Cause when you go to a movie theater, you don't want somebody like talking during the movie theater, stuff like that. So I always made sure like there are components to where people won't be talking, there's like too many people talking, give them free popcorn. Maybe they'll shut up by shoving popcorn in it, you know, like things like that. But I would do it in subtle ways. And then that's when one of the people around, he's like, man, you'll be a cool director to work with. So I never thought I would be like a leader or a director.
Thank you for that answer. Sorry, Brooke. I just want to say thank you and that you're a natural born leader is what I took away from that.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say that's like always the best kind of leader where they're focused on like executing the vision and they're focused on like the endeavor itself and making sure that it's like the best it can be versus, you know, tooting their own horn or kind of throwing their weight around with being the boss. Like that's the best kind of leader. So,
But kind of like another story was like, I had to kind of loosen the reins a little bit because now that I got people coming in, because when I first started doing Native Real, working with Stranahan House and April Kirk and everybody there, we had about maybe 6 people to where it grew to about 15 people to where it dwindled down to just me. And the reason why I dwindled down just to me was because it was during COVID. And I still kind of wanted to keep things going. I was like, can we do it virtually? Can we do it, you know, this way, such and such? And COVID, I wouldn't say almost killed Native Real, but it came close. But soon as we were open up for, opening the businesses up, people can go to grocery stores to shop right off the bat. I was like, you know what? I'm planning the next Native Real. But at that time, it was by myself. So I was like the person getting the films. I was the one negotiating the deals with the actors, getting the films being paid for to show here, blah, blah, blah. Even to where I was even stacking the chairs, putting the chairs down, making sure the levels of the microphones were correct, stuff like that. And I was running all over the place. And then I remember like finally, little by little, people were coming out to help me, in 2021 or no, 2022. And like, they were just like, hey, just take a back seat. We got this. And I was like, no, 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 you don't know what and then like literally they kind of like started putting things. I was like, okay, maybe you kind of see what I'm saying. They're like, yeah, because we had a meeting. We know exactly what they're like, no, we got, and I loved when they say, oh, we got you, whatever. And I was just like, no, 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 I got to go there. But like, I had to have meetings with, the head of tribal fair committee. I had to have meetings with Councilman Chris. But then at the same time, we were having the event, or we had to go and pick up the actor themselves from the airport. And I was like, okay, I got to go and pick them up. They're like, no, we already picked him up. He's already checking into his hotel. And I was like, okay, well, what can I do? And they're just like, just do that part. We got everything else. And then I just felt like I felt like I was like, I feel like something's gonna happen, something's gonna go wrong, but nothing went wrong. So I had to kind of like take a step back and trust my team. And then I think that was the other thing that they liked, that I was actually hands-on and I wanted to like be a part of something. Like at one point I was just like, is there anything for me to do? And they're like, no, just be there when we start and then just do your closing remarks and this and this and that. And then I was like, but I'm gonna like let a little secret. Sometimes I'll say, oh, well, I'm going away. Oh, we're not going away, but I'm gonna step out for a minute. I would actually sneak behind the screen and watch the movies because I didn't want to be bothered, because like if I was standing out there, like I would have somebody pulling me this way, or I have and last year we had Zon McLarnon, and he's been in.
Oh, you're fine.
So we had Zon McLarnon last year, and he did it as a big favor to me to come in. And when he came in, there was a line for the meet and greet. There was a line going out the door, almost towards kind of like the middle of the hallway when you go to the tribal fair. Like it was a big, huge line. And because of that, the fire marshal was kind of like, I need to talk to Everett, blah, blah, blah. But as this was going on, one of my friends actually came out with a new short film and I wanted to watch it. So I snuck behind and was watching the film. Right when I was done, I came out and they're just like, where were you? And I was like, I was in the bathroom, whatever. But it's like I have to sneak away to actually watch the films, that I bring in. Because sometimes these films, I would only see them. And going back to the films, some of them, I like doing the film freeway, which is kind of new to me. And you watch the films right there. some of the films I would hear about by word of mouth, and I only can see like the trailer, or they'll give me like a press release or a junket release, and I would only read the synopsis. Like I wouldn't even watch the films until they got here, but I would vouch for them, whatever. But I was like, man, I really want to watch this film. Now they're kind of opening up to showing me the films, giving me the links to the films to watch before I would show them. But yeah, usually I would have to watch the films when they get here. But my friend's film that came out, I was like, oh my God, I haven't even seen it, because he had just finished post production on it. So he kind of showed me a rough cut, but he's like, oh, but I added something more to it. And I was like, oh my God, I want to watch it. So then when Zahn was doing the meet and greets, it was going around the corner. Fire Marshal was losing his mind. And I was there watching movies behind the screen. So hopefully nobody knows my secret space that I'm still back behind there. But anyway, that was
I'd say we won't tell, but you're telling on yourself right now. No, that's all. That's like true passion and love too for your project. That's awesome. I wanted to ask, so as you're describing kind of the process through COVID, you mentioned like it didn't kill Native Reel, but it almost did. Were there any other like big milestones in the journey, or like big turning points that you can think of that like really kind of shifted things for Native Reel?
Yeah, what kind of shifted was I was able to show more movies. I kind of noticed that a lot of people kind of gravitated towards short films. And I love short films too, but like I said, I love feature films as well. But I noticed with the short films, a lot more Native talent want to submit towards that, or they wanted to show me their short films. And it was kind of like just seeing these films and seeing what they're about, and then actually having this little space. And when I would do the short films, it was like, but it was like when I would notice the short films, at first it was just like maybe 10 or 15 people, but then people would want to watch the feature films because that's the main actor I'll bring in. But when I started showing the short films, it was becoming bigger and bigger, and it was almost becoming standing room only. And then that's when I noticed I could bring more producers, directors, actors, and these are up and coming people who, they just want their film to be shown. Like some would even pay their own way and bring their family so they could see it on the big screen. And I would say another implement that I'm trying to bring in is music. And because I feel like film and music, they kind of go together, because, I'm sure you can relate to this, Brooke, but it's from Parks and Rec. But like that he would always have, like, I think it was like Ben Wyatt. He had like a CD thing, and Audrey Plaza's character is like, why do you have so many soundtracks? He's like, I feel like it's director's mix just for me, So I always feel like the music and the movies should go and coincide. So when Guardians of the Galaxy came out, a lot of people didn't believe me, and I was like, oh yeah, that's, when the first one came out and when they opened up the title screen, they played Redbone, Come and Get Your Love. And I was like, oh, they're playing Redbone, and I was with a couple of friends, whatever, and they're just like, what's Redbone? I was like, it's a Native band. But they heard that song throughout, growing up. They're like, that's a Native band. I was like, yeah, it's a Native band. And then it got popular. So then they started looking it up, and they're like, oh my God, it's actually Native Americans playing this song. So if you notice, they play that song in each one. They always incorporate it into Guardians of the Galaxy 1, Volume 2, Volume 3. And they started off with Come and Get Your Love in the beginning of Guardians of the Galaxy, and they ended on Volume 3. That was the last song at the end, the last scene of Volume 3 of Guardians of the Galaxy. So Spencer Batiste reached out to me, and he's like, I got an idea. He's like, we had this award called the Mary Moore Award, and it was honoring Mary Moore because she was the first Seminole tribal member to be on cinema, which was Winds Across the Everglades. And she passed, but before she passed, I had Taboo from Black Eyed Peas actually present the award to her that we named after her. And after that, we kind of didn't know what the right time to bring it back. So then Spencer Batiste kind of came up to me. He's like, why don't we bring that back and give it to Pat Vegas, who's basically the last remaining member of Redbone. So I was like, oh, you're a genius. I was like, let's do it. So we did it. We brought him and his son PJ and his daughter Frankie. So we brought them out here, and I treated him, like he was like one of my uncles, like he was one of like one of my elders. He's probably gonna get mad at me for saying elders, but like one of like I made sure he was the first one to sit down. I made sure we waited for him, whatever. But that's just how I was raised. And then we had this moment where they have him and his brothers regalia that they used to travel together, and it's right next to Spencer and Doc Native's regalia at the Hard Rock. They have an exhibit. So they're coming through, and we kind of surprised them. We're just like, hey, that's you and your brother. And he got out of his scooter thing, and then he came up to it and he just started crying. And then it was just like a very special moment. And then I didn't know, and this is another moment that just kind of like just happened organically. We weren't planning that. That was not planned. We went to have breakfast, but I take everybody out for breakfast so I could break down the schedule. It's like basically a work breakfast, whatever. But on the way back, we saw that, and we just like, hey, let's show him and his brother's exhibit. So we showed it to them, and that beautiful moment happened. People were taking pictures of it, whatever, and then they sent it to this Instagram outlet called Indigenous TV, and Indigenous TV actually put it on their IG account, and then they basically said Native Real honors Pat Vegas, and then people were saying we were doing something that the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame should be doing, but just the fact that we were actually honoring him was a big thing, and recognizing what he did. And so that was like a big, huge thing. That was like a big thing for me. And then just having Pat Vegas, and right now, I mean, I'm still friends with PJ and Frankie and Pat, like I still ask about them. Like every time I see something and I hear that song, like I'll send it to PJ and Frankie to get to their dad.
That is so sweet. From this whole episode, I've really just, and I'm sure all of the audience can say the same to those who are listening in, like your love and passion, you could feel it, you can hear it, and to hear the amount of respect that you have and that you're constantly like, and I know you keep saying like that's just how I was raised, but I think it does play more into that, like you really do go a step above and beyond than most do to make sure that not only your, the tribal members feel comfortable and safe, that, what you're displaying is being honored in a correct way and not just kind of like in a, oh, we're just playing a movie. Like, no, there's a reason why we're playing this movie, and I'm going to tell you, and I want everyone to understand it. So the amount of respect that you have and passion is truly contagious. Like you just talking about it, like every time you talk about it, it just makes me and Brooke smile, and I can't even imagine everyone else listening in being like, okay, when is it again? Like the girls keep saying tribal fair, but when is it? Like when do I get to go see? So, I definitely advise everyone to come check it out. Come to tribal fair, come to Native, like come check it out. Come see this amazing. You really did do something, Everett. Like your baby has grown, and I know I'm kind of like talking over myself, but you really like, it's amazing how contagious, and just you brought the whole community together in a way that I don't, like people talk about it, but you made it happen. Like you were like, what can we do to make this happen? So is there any final words you would like to say? Anything that you would like to mention? I mean, I'm just like taken away. Like your passion really just kind of like, and it's like, what, I'm excited to see what else you're going to do, what other movies you're going to bring in.
I say not just the passion too, but like how humble you've remained about this amazing thing that you've built, and the fact that when you talk about your vision for it and what you hope that Native Real does, it's never like about you as an individual. Like it's always for, your community, indigenous communities everywhere. And, that's amazing. Even if you don't get, your big ups all the time, you definitely have it from Awista and I, and it's really, really impressive. It's amazing. And by the way, y'all, I said the wrong dates earlier. I'm so sorry. Tribal Fair is January 31st to February 2nd. That's my bad. But that's where you can check out Native Real. My fault. But I just wanted to add that in.
Yes. So to kind of give you like an insight of what we're gonna have this year. Yes, so we're gonna have a screening of Res Ball and Pray, January 31st, and then February 1st, we're gonna have, I'm gonna call it Indigenous Grown. I'm sorry, Indigenous Homegrown Short Film Block, and this is where I'm gonna highlight people from Miccosukee and Seminole Tribe who came out with films, such as Doc Native, Houston Cypress, Montana Cypress, Dual Gore. Myself, I actually came out with a commercial. Like I never saw myself being in a director's chair, but I did a commercial for Tribal Fair. So I'm trying to start my own production company called Southern Indian Productions. So we did it as a project of, hey, could we do a commercial? So we did the commercial and it actually went viral. Like I would say within 4 hours, we got, oh my God, I forgot how many, I think over 500 likes and then 17,000 views. It might be even higher than that. But now they're playing it through Hard Rock. They're going to play it like on, I believe they call it the Ribbon, but it's the big screen that you see when you go past Hard Rock. They're going to be playing it in movie theaters, like the pre-show before you see the previews. And because of that, they're asking me and my team to actually do another project for a commercial. So I never saw myself in the director's chair, but I was able to do that. But then again, it was just like just me and my co-director and director of photography. We were able to come up with an idea, and then I was open to other people's suggestions too, because I don't, the best way that a man, like the best way you could say by you knowing everything is saying that you don't know everything. So like I might have a vision, but I might leave something out. So I might have another fresh part of eyes. So because of that, they gave me that love for that project. And because of that, it became a really big success. And I thank my community and I thank my team behind it. But yeah, so we're going to have that, the Indigenous Homegrown short film blog. And then we're going to show the 30th anniversary of Last of the Mohicans. And I'm going to try to reach out to them. So Bobby Frank, if you're listening, and Marl, I might be hitting you guys up because I believe they played extras in Last of the Mohicans, so I might be bringing them up on stage with, so I'm going to go into who we may be bringing the celebrities, which is Wes Studi, Martin Sinsmeyer, and Gene Brave Rock, and we're waiting on 2 other people. But hopefully, if they come in, we'll have a really good lineup for this year. So come on out January 31st and February 1st for Native Real Cinema Fest 2025.
All right, guys, that brings us to the end of today's show. If you like our show, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Simplecast, wherever you listen to your podcast. Thanks again to Everett for coming onto the show again and for giving us all this juicy insider information of what we can expect from Native Real this year and a lot about its evolution, as you put it earlier, Awista. I love that. But yeah, guys, be sure to come back for more content, and we can't wait to see all of you at Seminole Tribal Fair and specifically at Native Real Cinema Fest. Bye, guys.